Well, it's been about a year with this bike. Guess I could give a 1-year review. I think I've had it for about a year. If not a year, close enough to a year. So this will be my 1-year review. And yeah, I can't complain. This thing's awesome. The only kind of downside to it is how it's, you know, tuned from the factory. It's kind of weak. Well, a little weak from the factory, but you know, it is what it is. You can get that tuned and you can get that taken care of, which I will be as soon as the exhaust gets here, whenever that shows up. But yeah, it's a little bit weak from the factory, but everything else, I mean, I even crashed on this bike and I mean, it held up. I didn't have to replace anything except for the frame sliders and axle sliders. That was it. But yeah, my review of this bike is that it is awesome. I have no complaints. It held up through a wreck, you know, and it held up pretty well through a freaking wreck. Just some scratch fairings on it. Even with the tune being kind of weak from the factory, this thing still has so much power to it. It's kind of ridiculous. There's, I'm gonna be honest, there's no need for anyone to have a bike with this much power. It is so dangerous. And if that's right up your alley, then this is the bike for you. And the other cool thing is it gets so much attention too. I mean, look at it, it's freaking lime green. This thing gets a lot of attention. It just kind of sticks out like a sore thumb. And of course, you know, the biggest thing I really love about this, one of the big reasons why I bought this bike, cruise control. It has cruise control, and I love cruise control. It makes riding so much better having cruise control. I mean, just being able to set it and just kind of kick back a little bit. It has the up and down quick shifter on it too. I just shifted gears, so that reminded me of that. You know, I've had quick shifters on a bike before. I had it on my BMW, which was nice, but this one's so much better, mainly because that BMW was a 2011, just wasn't quite as good, but it was still, you know, pretty good. It was still cool because I had never, you know, had a bike with a quick shifter on it. So at the time I didn't know that it wasn't like great, mainly because I just didn't know any difference. I'd never had one before. Now I can say this one is better than the 2011 BMW quick shifters. I do know that it's not as good as the current BMW quick shifters though, but I'm gonna get that kind of tuned up. I don't know what they do to it, but I know at some of these tuners they can make the quick shifter smoother and faster, and that's what I plan to do. I'm going to make it a little bit smoother, a little bit faster, a little bit better. But I mean, God, yeah, I just have no complaints on this bike. I'm at 2,300 miles now, and this thing has just been immaculate. This is a bike I'm keeping forever. And actually, right there is Ride One Power Sports in Springfield, Ohio, which is where I bought this bike from. And it is it's a pretty good dealership, not bad. You know, they answered all of my questions, got me what I wanted on my trade too. They're a good dealership. I'd say they're a good dealership, but I've worked at other dealerships where I've become friends with the salesperson, and I would just say like that's a better dealership. But that doesn't mean that Ride One is a bad dealership. But I do definitely think that it's a very straight to the point kind of dealership. You know, they're gonna work with you. They're gonna get it done if possible. You know, if you walk in there with no money down and, you know, a low credit score, then good luck if you're trying to take out a loan. But you know, they're very to the point. They're gonna get it done. I just, you know, prefer the other place which the other place was actually in Texas, where we lived at previously, and they, you know, I became friends with the sales guys there. You know, they were all about motorcycles. They loved the motorcycles. It seemed like these guys were just there for a job, but aren't we all? Aren't we all mostly just working our jobs because it's a job and it pays us money? So I can't say like that's a bad thing. I work my job because it pays me money. You think I want to be a truck driver? I don't want to be a truck driver. Man, I got way off topic. This bike's awesome. This bike is cool. I love everything about it. I just don't even know what else I can really say about it. It's just good. This is like a forever bike for me. I'm going to keep this thing for so long. And another bike, another Kawasaki bike. I think that was a Kawasaki. I don't really know. But yeah, this is a forever bike for sure. I'm even looking at getting a Honda CBR 1000. But not trading this in. I want to keep this. Now, the Honda will be probably a couple of years from now. I want to get a cruiser next. But I get my little collection built back up that I had to sell off. I guess I didn't have to sell off, but I did sell off when we moved to Ohio. And now I regret it because I had some cool stuff. At least I thought it was cool stuff. Maybe other people don't. I mean, this cruise control. You can just kick on back, kind of relax. No hands. It's so straight too. That's the best part. It keeps itself so straight. Now this isn't a good day to prove how well it keeps straight because it's pretty windy out, but when it's not crazy windy, it keeps itself real straight. You can maneuver this thing with your hips, and it's just good. It's just good. And I was always a little weird about this bike too because the front end. I always thought the front end looked a little wonky. It's grown on me for sure, but I always thought the front end on these new ZX-10s were very, very wonky looking. Now I like it. So that's one of the things you're looking at, and you're looking at this bike going, it looks weird. It'll grow on you. Maybe. But even if it doesn't grow on you, just the enjoyment that you'll get out of this thing makes it worth it. I mean, it just gets up and goes, just moving. Even with the crappy factory mapping, it still just gets up and goes. I think the other thing I really like about this, because you know, a lot of sport bikes now, I've had an R1 too, they're more narrow, they're like smaller, you know, width-wise, where this one's a super wide bike. This is a big bike. I mean, even for like a 1000, this is a big bike. It's really wide. That's another thing I like about it. It's like a super wide bike. I don't care if it's heavier. I don't care. I'm riding on the street. I'm not setting track records. This is like the perfect street bike because that like wideness kind of gives you a little more of a comforting feeling, I think, just because it feels larger. You're not more protected, but it kind of makes you feel a little more protected than a super narrow bike. But I mean, it is a wide bike for sure. This is a large bike. I wouldn't say it's heavy. I wouldn't say it's all that heavy of a bike, but it's a big one. It's a big one for a sport bike if you're not talking, you know, the Hayabusa or the ZX-14. If you take those out of the equation, this is a big sport bike, a really big one. But I think that's kind of part of the enjoyment of it. I've heard some people complain, some people don't like it. I love it. That's what's always drawn me to this bike, even though I've never had one before. I've always looked at them and loved them, but never actually bought one. Now that I've had this thing, it's like, oh, I'm not letting this thing go. I can't let this go. This bike's way too good. And I'm the type of person that just trades up constantly. Like every year, I usually get a new bike. And it's now been a year, and I'm not even considering trading this in on something else. Getting a new bike, yes, but not getting rid of this thing to get a new bike. And I guess if you've never had, you know, the screen there as your gauge cluster, you know, this is really cool. It's really great. It's not too big, not too small. It gives you all of the information that you could possibly need for street riding. Probably track riding, but I don't know. I've never ridden on a track. So it gives you all the information that you could possibly need for riding on the street. At least, maybe more. It looks good. And I mean, I've had a screen before, so it's not really something I think about as far as, you know, like a really awesome big feature. You know, kind of all the Super Sport 1000s have now gone to them. Actually, I think all of them have gone to them, and now the 600s are even going to them. You know, the ZX-10R has gone to a screen now. The new CBR 600, I don't think it's in the US, but the new one that they like just kind of released has the screen, you know, so everyone's kind of going to them now, but the screen is really cool. I've always really liked these. You know, my R1 had that screen on there. I remember when I got my R1, how cool I thought that screen was on there, and then just like anything else, you get used to it and then you just sort of expect it. And I've had people ask me if I would recommend this bike. You know, there's a guy I know that has a ZX6. He was like, yeah, I've been thinking about getting a ZX-10. I'm like, yeah, it's a great bike. The problem is he's just like 20 years old. So I kind of pushed him away from that idea, because it's like, yeah, it's a great bike. It's awesome. I love everything about it. However, he was telling me about all the, you know, top speed runs he's trying to do and run from the cops and this and that, and just acting like a hooligan. It's like, okay, you don't need any 1000. You don't even need a 600, but you already got one. It's like, yeah, you don't need anything like this. You're gonna kill yourself. But anyone who's actually responsible enough and has experience, yeah, I would recommend this bike. I've ridden a few other 1000s. This is definitely a top. I did really like the BMW S1000, I'm not gonna lie. But if you're talking Japanese bikes, in my personal opinion, Japanese bikes only, this is the best one that you can get. This thing is just so good. Everything about it is just so good. And it's gonna get so much better when I get the exhaust on here and you can hear it screaming from a mile away. Of course, that's also opinion too. Some people absolutely hate that, especially if you have your windows down and I'm driving next to you, or someone behind me on a bike. Yeah, you might not like that too much, but I'm gonna like it. And I'm doing this for me. This is for me. Anyway, that's all I got. I mean, it's just good. If you're ready for a 1000 and responsible enough, I would highly recommend this bike. Highly recommend it. Anyway, that's all I got. Love you. Bye bye.